Hey Tanya, do you have an Osprey moment for the week?
I do. I was so excited about this one, let me tell you.
Oh, so it's an
It is in
Spain.
Spain,
Uh,
but I don't, for me, it's only ever happened in Spain. It might
okay,
have happened in other places for other people. I have been traveling for years. Like I said, I moved to America when I was 21. I've been going through airports in all over the place, but I've never ever had this experience, which is what happened yesterday when we were traveling. I was traveling with Zena from Spain to England, which we do quite a bit, back and forth.
right.
And Valencia's a small airport. It's a really nice airport, but you've still got people usually,
Right.
right?
And I will say I will agree, it is a perfect sized airport. I think for someone who travels a lot, it is
Yeah.
heavenly. But go
And
on.
I don't know if it's the same as it was, but it's kind of like what Burbank used to be when I lived there. I mean, it's like a smaller
Hmm.
airport. I have no idea if Burbank is still in LA, is still this tiny place, but it was very much like that, like, I don't know, 20 years ago or something.
It still is.
Yeah.
It's still yeah.
It's kind of it's the little airport that's near the really big airport, so people aren't using it as much. So we go in and we swipe our card, like our QR code to get through, of our boarding pass to get through to security. We get to the gates open, we go over. There are literally three people in the security area, and they're
Like
all at a conveyor belt thing, already dealing with
okay.
their stuff, and there's probably five conveyor belts open. And I said to Zena, I was like, well, pick whichever one you want to go to. Like, we literally have the whole of the security place to ourselves. I've never had that experience ever. It was so
Oh,
delightful. And obviously we got through. Like, it was just so chill. I've never had such a chill experience going through an airport
right.
in my whole entire life, because the security is kind of madness, right? Usually,
Right.
and that
Well, I mean,
yeah.
I'll say I love that because I've only been to our airport twice,
Oh,
and
really? Yes.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So, um, I actually could add to it. I have a Spain and an
Well,
Spain
with
because I
airports for
had
sure. I mean, they're
yeah,
mostly are Spain, right? There's not a lot of
yeah.
Spain at airports, that's for sure.
So I had never had this. What you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
the QR code, security, like the QR code on your phone to get through security, right? I mean, I've had it with like the person checking it, not completely automated.
Oh,
And
right.
last summer we went to Paris for the Olympics, and we had this, but we were in some weird cell phone like no man zone,
Mm-hmm.
and so I didn't like download them. I was just opening like the email or the app or whatever I was opening, but it wouldn't open. So I got Paloma through, but then it wouldn't like load up the other two for me and Omara. And so we were sitting outside of security and we're like, what do we do? We can't get in. My daughter's been sucked into the airport vortex and we
Oh
can't get
my
out.
God, yes.
And then the security woman's like, fine, take her through, like
They let
get her
you
back
through?
out.
Oh, they let her
No,
back
they
to
let her
you.
back
Oh,
out.
okay.
But the thing is then, so then I went outside and like waved my phone in the air like a crazy man trying to find a cell signal,
Right, right.
And then we got it and then I loaded it back in. But then they like let Paloma through because we couldn't get her through security again because the pass had
Right.
already been used.
Oh my God.
And then it was like the same security. She's like, it's fine, just run her
It's
through. I was
very
like,
stressful. So I've had two
it's
experiences like
very
that. So first
stressful.
of all, I always, if I have an iPhone, I always add the boarding passes to my wallet, so that they're not
Hmm.
in the app, because I'm afraid, like, what happened to you, of the app like breaking down or something, or
Right.
oh, sign in again, we've logged you out, and then it's like, I don't know my password, or whatever happens. And then I also take a snapshot of it on my phone, and I have it in my photos. So I have it in various places because
Ah.
it's just a QR code. And I also send Zena hers so she can use it on her phone. So she has a bit of like, oh, I get to scan myself in, right? So that way
Right.
that kind of works. But when she was very, very young, um, that was the first time I had done that. We just had regular boarding passes then, and she was in a stroller, so I scanned my boarding pass and strolled us both through, right, without scanning
Hmm.
hers. When I
Uh-huh.
got to the gate, they were like, "Oh, we don't have her
Ooh.
registered." No, they didn't have me
Oh.
registered.
You're on a no-fly list
No, no, no,
now
no.
for
So I
breaching
had only scanned
security.
one of the boarding passes. I'd scanned
Right.
hers, right, and she was like two,
Right.
and then they hadn't scanned. I hadn't scanned my boarding pass. I'd only scanned hers, and I went through, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have you." I'm like, "What do you think? A 2-year-old is like traveling alone?" So now I'm sitting at the gate, and they're like, "We don't have a seat for you." And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, you can't have a seat for a 2-year-old and not a seat for a parent.
Right,
Like,
right.
this isn't like computing at all. They did sort it out, but that was the first like time where I was like, okay, you got to scan all the boarding passes. You can't, even if you can
Right.
get a little kid through, you got to scan them all because you could get in trouble later on. And then
Right, right.
because I go back and forth to Stansted a lot, and in Stansted, what happened to me one time, what happened to somebody else, I was going through because they have the banks where you know like 5 or 6 people can scan their boarding passes at the same time, and this
Right.
woman did the same thing. She let her kid through first, and Xena was probably like 8 or something at the time, and her kid was like 6. Scanned the kid through, the kid went through, and then her boarding pass didn't work, so now she's on the other side from a 6-year-old, and
Right.
she's like freaking out obviously. And I had gone through with Xena luckily at that moment, and the security person there wouldn't let her fix it like they did with you. So she's
Oh my God.
separated. So I'm standing there. I was like, do you want me, total stranger, do you want me to look after your child? Do you want me to stand here with your child? She's like, yes, please, that would be great. And she's running around with the security person who won't let the child back through. So we're standing there for like half an hour while she's sorting this out
Oh, that's
with her child.
ridiculous.
It was so ridiculous. But I mean, thank God I was there with a child, because otherwise, like, who are you trusting your child with?
Right.
Another, you always feel better with somebody else that's a parent, you know, even
Right.
though who knows what kind of parent they
Who knows
are.
what's going on? Yeah.
Right. But so yeah, be careful with the, always have the QR code scan like onto your phone in another way, not just in the app. That's my advice for that one.
Right.
But yeah, we've been traveling back and forth. Unfortunately, my dad was in the hospital, so I know that's a lot of concern that people have that are traveling from America, wanting to move to Europe and feeling like their elderly family members are, you know, a really long plane ride away. And it is a concern.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved. One of the reasons, one of the many reasons, which we keep bringing up, all the 50 million reasons that we moved to Spain, was to be
Mm-hmm.
closer to our family, my family in England, my husband's family in Morocco. So we have been closer. And then when my dad was in the hospital, I've been able to go back and forth, which has been really, if I was still living in the States, that would have been impossible. I would have had to
Right.
commit to coming over here for probably a month or two. And then we've been going back and forth, and my brother's been going back and forth from where he is. And then unfortunately, my dad did pass away, which is why we're back over here now for his funeral. But we've been able to
Mm-hmm.
go in as awful as all of that is, and as dreadful as the last several months have been, it has been a blessing to be closer, where I've been able to go back and forth and do that. So obviously I'm in a very different situation from people thinking of coming from the States, because I'm kind of fixing that problem.
Right. Right.
But you know, it is something to consider, and that's why it might be we might sound a bit confused sometimes, where I'm pretending to be in Spain but I'm in England, and really I've been going back and forth to both. And that is one of the, and this is not a great scenario, but it is a joy of being in
Right.
Spain, is being able to pop back and forth to different countries easily, and for me to go back to England. So there you go. As sad as this is at this particular moment, I'm very grateful that we made the move to come back so that I could be there for that, you know, and all that. So
Right.
wonderful,
Right.
yeah,
I mean, and it's and you are very uh uh it's very lucky for you to be able to do that, I guess,
yeah,
is what I'm also trying to
yeah.
say, is that, you know, and thankfully you were able to be there during this time, right?
Yeah,
So
and then also, you know, for my mom, so it's everything. I think it would have been extremely stressful to have been in the States, just, you know, financially flying back and forth, time wise, sorting out your job with traveling. And if
right.
you only have a short flight and you can do everything in both places, I think it makes you more available for your family. And if that's something that you desire, I think it is important to be in a situation where you can do the things that matter to you, you know. And if you're,
Right.
you know, for me that meant being over here and being closer to England as my parents were getting older. And for other people, you know, you might be able to move over here and still have the flexibility to go back to the States, as well. I think it's definitely
Right.
something to consider. And I
It
realize,
is. It
yeah,
is. So that's one of the kind of perks of living here, is compared to even America. 'Cause if this had happened in America, not even to England, but like if you were living in California and your, you know, your dad was in like Chicago, airfare is just so prohibitively expensive in America. Where in Europe you can go to England for 30 euros round trip on a Ryanair flight, as long as you only wear shoes.
Right.
As long as you're not bringing any bags with you, you can fly
Right.
really cheap.
Absolutely.
Once you add a carry on, now it's a two
Yeah,
hundred
so
dollar
outside
ticket.
of my horrible scenario over the last couple of months, on a brighter note, besides all of that, being in Europe, one of the great things that we've also taken advantage of is traveling around Europe easily. And like you said, traveling around America is not that cheap, and it is, and it can be traveling around Europe when you are in Spain or any country you're living in Europe. And that is one of the things that we wanted to be able to do, was to come
Right.
here and be able to go to different places. And we've touched a little bit on the different cultures, but it's like, going to a different country and that's close, and you can go onto any of these sort of airlines, and just, if you don't really care when you go, and what, you can get very cheap flights.
You're very cheap, and I do want to mention that we actually did have a comment on Spotify from a Faith Torres from Oklahoma. Her comment was she wanted to know what it would be, what it's like to live in Europe and to travel to other places.
Oh,
So,
there you go. Yep.
thank you,
Thank
Faith. So
you.
I hope we're gonna answer or talk and let you know you've been heard.
Yes. And can I just say how excited I am to have a listener in Oklahoma? Because I don't know anyone in Oklahoma, so that was also a real treat.
It's like great, and the little comment. It's like
Yeah.
we're a force
We
now,
are.
Tanya.
But
We're a force.
so please comment wherever you are. Like, I'm like, it's just really exciting to see where people are listening from, and it also helps us with sort of coming up with ideas of what we're going to talk about. Because Gaetano and I could talk about anything. We could literally talk about shoes and socks for an hour. So
Yeah, we literally almost did that episode about
We
socks.
did.
So just to see if we could.
So if you give us suggestions of things you want to hear about, it will streamline the process a little bit, probably.
Yeah, because this is about our life here and why we moved here, but it is also like, what do you want to know about it? Like, because stuff that we might think is mundane and not want to talk about could be very well interesting.
So
and
thank
we didn't
you.
even
So
know.
thank you, Faith, because the travel is so easy. It's getting mundane. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, we have
We
to go to
have to
so
travel.
I mean, I have teenagers, so it is
You do get a little bit of that. I have to travel again.
yeah, we went, like I said, we went to Paris for the Olympics, and it was just like a 3 night trip. It was a quickie thing, and in retrospect, I wish we would have stayed longer, because I was thinking the crowds were going to be crazy, and the reality was Paris was dead. There was all these people, but they were all inside stadiums, so it was the perfect time to see the Louvre and all
But that's
these
a
sites.
humongous surprise, right? Like, you would never
It was a
have
total
imagined.
surprise. But and the hotels were ridiculously
The hotels
expensive.
were,
So,
yeah, that's true.
yeah, I mean, we were staying, I don't even tell you what we paid and where we were staying. Like, it was a beautiful, quaint town, but it was like 20, 30 minutes outside of Paris, but it was like Disneyland
Right.
idea of France. It was ideal.
Well, I mean, traveling for an event is one thing. I mean, just for anyone that's interested in football, I do believe the World Cup, not the World Cup. Is it the World Cup that's coming up next? Is it going to be in Spain? Oh my God, my husband's going to kill me for not knowing the details of this.
Well, it's been nice knowing
I
you,
know.
Tanya. So,
I believe that.
you married a Moroccan and you
Oh.
haven't put football is like your, like, it's not in your blood now, and everything you think about morning, noon, and night. I mean,
I believe it's being shared between Portugal, Spain, and Morocco. I believe.
I think you're right.
Oh God, I'm sorry ahead of time for this. Anyway, so that's going to be something that people might be traveling for an event like what you were talking about, and that is
Right.
obviously a different thing. You have to pay extra for those things, but outside of these types of scenarios, just go you can just sit and find the cheap flights. I think the reason that we had no security at the airport when we traveled on Tuesday was because spring break's coming up on Thursday. So there
Right.
was just that we kind of got in ahead of that, but close enough to it that, that there wasn't other things happening and it wasn't a weekend, but that will probably never happen again. But
Well, I don't know. I had a similar experience, not when we went to Paris, but when we went to England back in January. And we went to the airport and it was dead. And when we arrived back, the airport was like empty. And me and my daughters looked at each other and we felt like we were
It's
like in an
creepy,
HBO
right?
movie. Like, we're like, did the world end and no one told, like, we were the last survivors? I'm like, that's
Like,
what we
this
felt like.
can't
It was
be
like,
right.
it was like, yeah, there was like, we're zombie apocalypse. Like, what happened?
I mean,
Like, why
airports
is this
just aren't
airport
empty. No, so the other thing is here, I did travel a few times because I was going back and forth so much. I was looking for sort of cheap flights at times that there weren't maybe cheap flights. And Castellón is another airport just north of Valencia, about by car. Let's not get into the by train situation, because I don't think you can get to it by train, which is an unfortunate scenario
Get
there.
to what by train? Oh,
The
the
airport,
airport.
yeah, you can get to
No.
Castellón, the town, but then you have to then take a bus to the airport. It's a very disconnected, unfortunately, a very disconnected public transport airport. But the airport is like it's like flying out of someone's living room. So you literally, like, the airport is closed to the gate area until the plane's about to go, because they probably have like 4 staff working in the whole
Right,
place.
right.
So it was like, that was also a lovely experience, but the airport's in the middle of nowhere and you do pretty much have to drive up there. But that is also an option for this area, for the Valencia area, is
Right.
to,
If you have a car,
if you have a car,
it's a great.
yeah, you can leave your car there and fly in and out
Didn't
of
you
that
say
airport.
like the parking's like free still there or something?
Well, I don't want to jinx it, because we might use that airport again, because I was talking to somebody in the airport, because I was sitting there and the airport was, the area to go up and go through security and everything was closed, and I said, am I in the right place? Is the airplane leaving? Like, I don't know what's
Right.
going on. Then we started talking about the parking, and it is free, but they have recently, she said, put up the ticket barrier things, which gives me the feeling that they might be thinking about charging for it. So I don't want to jinx it by telling everybody that it's free, but right now I believe it is free. So you could very easily go up there.
If you want to leave in the next few weeks and,
Yes.
and travel, go to Castellón Airport.
Don't come after me. Don't come after me if you get charged for 2 weeks with your car at the airport. Definitely check first. But yeah, I think I think that's another nice sort of little airport to go out of if you do happen to be in the Valencia
Right.
area. There are options.
And the Valencia airport is, like you said, it's very, like, wait, did you say Stansted small too? Or were you
No,
talking about
Stansted's a
Valencia?
nightmare.
That's a
But
nightmare.
also
So
that
the Valencia,
day we went through passport control and it was only our airplane going through it. So we happened to have a nice experience there, but they just do the most
Gotcha.
ridiculous things there. Yeah.
Yeah, when we I mean, I will agree that the Valencia airport, it is like, to me it feels like the Long Beach airport or these like regional airports you find in like Florida.
Right.
It's just like there's like a few gates. I think it's like what, 17 gates or something. And I mean, half the planes you have to take a bus to get to the plane, right?
Right.
Right there. You don't even, I'm like, I want a jetway plane. Why do I have to get on the bus to go to the other side of the tarmac?
Well, that's like the DC
But-
airport has those, like, they look like those.
Oh, the Mad Max
yeah,
Thunderdome
like the
kind
duck
of
tour
things. Yeah.
things. That's what they
Yeah,
remind me
yeah,
of.
yeah, duck tour, yes.
That you have to go on. You feel like this is exciting the first time, and then afterwards you're like, I just want to walk it so that I can take how long I want. But speaking of going around Europe from Spain, I want to point out Morocco's really, really close. So
And I look at Ryanair and they have like flights for like
nothing.
30 round trip, 17 round trip. It's
Yeah.
like, and granted, you can only wear shoes, but
Well, I mean, that's the
Don't
same
different.
for whether you're going to France or England or Morocco or
Right,
anywhere. Like, if
exactly.
you want to get the cheap flight, it means not taking an extra bag. That's
Right.
kind of the whether.
any bag, like you can have a
have a handbag.
backpack that fits under your seat, and that's the only thing you get for free.
Right, but I
Yeah.
have fine-tuned that experience because, well, now going to England and Morocco, we leave stuff there because we're going back and forth. But even if you're not, I mean, it's a decent size bag that if you're being not too fancy, you can sort of go for a weekend on a bag that you can sit
Right.
under the seat. But I would say, yeah, Morocco's got really good flight prices, but also
Right.
it's a fantastic place to visit. Speaking of different cultures, I mean, if you want to get into a culture outside of the sort of Europeanish culture, because if you're going to Italy, France, like traveling around Spain, definitely very different, but not as different as going to Morocco in my experience. Like, it's
Right,
just
right.
a very very unique experience, and they've got a lot of great shopping down there, all the things that you want to buy, and and great food.
Well, then now now you've got a $500 return
You
ticket
do.
because now you have baggage.
This is the problem.
It cost me 10 euros to get there and 500 to get home because I had to buy a rug.
Right?
And,
And I do find this is the problem. I find it
and it didn't fit in my backpack.
no, for some reason I find it difficult. Like, if I'll say, yeah, I can like pack in this bag that's so small, whatever, but then it's very hard for me to leave room for me to buy anything to bring back.
Right.
So
Well,
that's
a
trick.
trick that I learned years and years and years and years ago was bring disposable clothing that you're ready to get rid of, and then you just leave it there and you buy the stuff you wanted. So if you're like, I wanted to get rid of these jeans, wear the jeans, and then throw them away in the new country. Now you have that space in that little backpack.
Oh, there you go.
So.
Yeah. Or wear all your clothes. I don't know.
Yeah. I can just imagine you at the airport in like 14 layers and it's 700 degrees outside because
my
you're like,
gosh.
I'm not paying, but I've got two coats and three. I'm wearing a dress
Oh
underneath.
my God, yes, and the airlines are brutal. They have the thing that you have to fit your bag in, and we were flying out when we were flying out yesterday. There was a family that had a bag that was literally 3 inches too big, and they were going to town on the fact that they weren't allowed to bring that bag in. And I thought that was a bit much, but that's what they do. So your bag
Yeah, but
better
you know what
fit.
really ticks me off is when they don't do that, and you've bought the small bag that was like, because that's the other thing, people, when you're traveling, none of the airlines are consistent in what size bag they allow as like that roller bag carry on. So Ryanair size is different than EasyJet's, and that's different than Vueling's or Vueling or however you pronounce it. It's pronounced different in every country. And Transavia, which is the other like French discount airline, because I've looked and they all have like these different
But there is
requirements.
one size I think that will kind of get you on all of them if you
Yeah,
want
it's
to
the
look. So
small. It's
that's
the
the smallest
smallest
one. So you
one.
just have to kind of abide by that because frankly, in my experience, we travel quite a lot, and we're always I'm using like skyscanner.net to find the
Yeah, I love
tickets, which gives you
Skyscanner.
all the different prices for different airlines, and sometimes you're going out on Ryan and coming back on EasyJet or something. So, it's just you will be using all of them at some point.
Right.
So it's just easier just to have that sorted out so you don't
But
run into that
when we
problem.
went to England, I bought the new bags, the smaller ones, because I was like, I'm not paying for any of these tickets were cheap, and I'm not spending a
Right?
cent more.
And they'll
And
charge you for everything. So you have to
right,
be
because I'm like,
very good.
if like I already had to pay for the carry on, and I was like, and then it was like, when you book the things, you have to like call customer service because it'll charge you bags for every passenger in your
Right.
group, and then you have to call back. I only want one bag for one person, and they're like,
Oh,
"How
you can
dare
do
you?"
that. You can do that, but you gotta go back and pay for it afterwards. And then you can do it.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. But you like, I found like whatever airline I was, like I had to call, and then they were like,
Oh.
"Oh, actually," but then they showed me there was a back way through the website to do it, but it was not made at all
No, no, no.
clear.
They want you to
So
buy it for everybody.
this is what Reddit and Quora is for,
Yeah,
people. So
exactly.
if you
Go see. But you can do that. So when you go through the process, it will make it look like you have to buy a bag for everybody, but you don't have to. Just go through and pay and then go
you
back
buy
and buy
it,
it.
you buy your regular tickets, and
And
then
then go
go
back
back
and just buy an
after
extra
and
bag.
add the bag.
Yeah, exactly. So there are ways around
But
it.
we Oh, I was gonna say, but we had these small bags, and we're here in Valencia, and then this other family walks by, and they have these huge roller bags, which aren't huge, but they're huge compared to these little pittances that we had bought, and I was like, "You're not even putting that in the thing. You mean we could have brought the other one we had at home, and I could have actually just paid for one extra bag instead of the two, because that would have fit the two that these are holding." I was very
But
annoyed,
if it makes
but
you feel better, they will eventually get caught.
they
I
will.
think they go through phases because sometimes they're not checking, and sometimes they're. I'm like, Zena, put your bag behind your back, and she's a
Right.
small girl, so I'm like, her bag looks bigger too, even though it's the right size.
Right.
I'm like, put it behind your back, and if we're seeing the passport person on the left, put it behind your right side, like so we're like strategy. But I do think there are times when they literally have somebody on there just to check the bags, and
Right.
they obviously.
And the size of these bags is clearly to catch you so they can charge you. It has nothing to
Absolutely.
do with anything. And that's why they're all different. So you can't just own one. I think they're in cahoots with the luggage business people. Like, oh, we'll make 75 bags that are almost the exact
So
same
in a
size.
minute, they're
But
about to change the size to 10 inches, 10 centimeters smaller in one
right.
way, so that all the bags that we've bought no longer
Are
fit.
obsolete. Exactly.
I think they must get commission or something, though, because I just can't understand why the people that work there would care
I
as
think I
much.
did read somewhere that they do,
Yeah.
like the gate agents get
They must
commissions for
do.
everyone they catch.
Because I
Yeah.
don't think anyone in any job would care that much about it to get into fights with people if they weren't getting a commission of some sort. So anyway,
Yeah.
just anyway, that is the ongoing fight that everybody has at all the airports in Europe when they're trying to get, because you bought a flight for 20 euros
For like nothing.
right?
I mean,
And then you don't
yeah.
want to get charged 100 euros for a bag, right? So
Right.
it just doesn't make any sense. You're like, I'm sticking with this ticket price. This is what I'm gonna do. So it's a fun game that we all play.
I will say that I see like people on like the message boards, like the Facebook groups about moving to Spain, and people saying, "Well, what city should I move to?" And all of they have kind of like no idea yet. And one of the reasons why I chose Valencia and the other cities we were looking at. What was important to me, and I think it's important if traveling around Europe is your goal, is make there's a lot of smaller airports and smaller cities in Spain that have some very well connected airports. So just go on Wikipedia. Like when you're looking at cities, go on the Wikipedia page of that airport and click on passenger, planes and destinations, and be like, oh, that goes to places I'd like to visit, because it's very nice for to be able to just take the subway into the middle of the airport here. It takes us 20-30 minutes to get to the airport, and we're inside the airport, and we're on a plane, and an hour and a half later we're in Paris, and 2 hours later, like it's so like it's for the amount of time it would take us in America to get from our home to security at the airport, right? The many hours of all of that. We're already in a foreign country, we've already landed in our thing, and that's the great thing about Europe too, is outside of the Castellan airport, most airports have direct train links into the cities, into the towns.
Yeah, and also from living outside of the city, Valencia is a great city because it is very small, and when you get to the outskirts of the city, it just kind of stops. It doesn't. It's not a sprawling city. So we live, 25 minutes outside of the city, in the countryside, in the mountains, and it takes us 25 minutes to get to the airport. So by car. So we're still, even though we live quite far outside of the city, theoretically, like, feeling wise.
I mean, if you were in LA that same distance, it would take you 3 days. Two camels and to get to the airport.
You would be just like, I'm just going to drive to Vegas and get their airport, I think. It wouldn't even be worth coming into LA for that. But yeah, so I would say it's a very, very accessible airport in Valencia. And I don't have a lot of experience with the other airports around Spain, because obviously we've been flying in and out of this one.
Right.
Which has been,
but like there's like Malaga is very connected. I think Alicante has a bigger airport because it's a more touristy thing. So the other thing though is like to what you were talking about earlier. If you have family that's ill and you want to take care of them and they're back in the States, you're not getting to the States from Valencia. You're going to have to go through Madrid, Barcelona.
Yeah.
But that also being said, is because Valencia is so well connected, you can fly through Paris. You can fly through Frankfurt. You have a lot of other
you could literally
airports
fly through any of the other countries and get out. Yeah, for sure.
And find cheaper fares that way. So you're not just restricted to Madrid. And the thing about Madrid is so close that it's cheaper just to take the train to Madrid and then fly from Madrid out to some of these other countries versus trying to get a connecting flight, because
that's what you did, right? You flew into Madrid
when we moved here.
Yeah, per our first episode when you were talking. Yes. I remember now. I was like, yeah, I remember that you were flying in and then decided to take that train, which I couldn't understand, but yeah.
Well, because we couldn't fly. You can't fly animals into Valencia from London.
Yeah.
There's very few airports you can fly out of England with your pets that will take them, because you can't fly into England with pets. So it's just this kind of like.
So speaking of England, if we can just talk about England for a second.
Oh, so this is like an England
It is.
moment.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So since oh my god, since England Brexited Europe. England is not in this lovely pocket of passport-free travel from Spain.
No.
So there's a special part of the airport in Valencia you got to go through, that there's like just one little cafe and everything else is in the other part of the airport. That's where our gate is, and you've got to go through the passport control, and then you got to go through passport control in England. So that ends up taking a lot of time that you do not have to put in when you're going from Spain to another European country. So, and since that's what I'm doing most of the time, and then we go to Morocco, which also you obviously have to do passport, but when you travel, so it's a different experience, the passport.
And for foreigners, you need visas now to get into England that
you do?
I didn't know about until like the night before the flight. The airline said, "Do you have your visa?" And I was like, "What?
You need a visa to come with an American passport?"
Yeah, it's like an electronic visa, and they get you, and it's €10 per person, and you have to have the app. And they asked me at the gate, "Do you have your visa? Because we won't let you on the plane."
Is that
show them the email?
Is that the whatever, not SB, but whatever.
It's initials.
Yeah, it's initials, right? Yeah, so you just have to have your name on that list. Basically, it's not so much a visa. It's like you have to pay. You got to pay, and you got to be registered on this list so that they have you. Blah blah blah.
And it's only good for 2 years. And then what really
Yes.
What really
in a whole bunch of words
me angry,
you can't use.
Yeah. But how do I keep this clean? Is I had to renew my daughter's passports So now I have to repay that 10
Right.
euros because it's tied to the passport number. So I have to pay for it again the next time we go to
Yeah.
England, which I'm sure we'll be going to England in the next year because it's so cheap and we have friends there. I mean, England's not cheap, but getting there can be very cheap and we have friends
It
to
is
stay with.
not
So it's
the I have managed to get some cheap tickets for sure. If you don't care when you go, you can. If you need to go at normal times, England shoots up dramatically, obviously, because
right.
London is also it's a hub to get to everywhere, like you just said. So, but having to go through the passport control, unless you have a traveling day like we had yesterday, is you can be sitting in that line for some time in London. So that's an extra timing thing you have to sort of consider, and that's just I'm just like another reason that I'm not happy about Brexit.
Right. I mean, I don't think anyone's happy
Some
about
people
Brexit
are.
from everything.
Obviously, it wouldn't have
They
happened.
think the number gets smaller and
It
smaller
might
every
be.
day. Yeah. But I was gonna say, the great thing about Spain is we have all these like random holidays, which I'm sure every country has their random holidays, right?
Hmm.
But we have all these random holidays that don't coincide with anyone else. So if you're like, well, we've got this random Wednesday off. So we went to England and I think I spent like 220 euros total for the three tickets, which I mean that's really inexpensive for three people to travel anywhere, especially coming from America, right? And it was because we had this random Wednesday off in January, and I was like, let me check airfares to see if we take off the Monday and Tuesday or the Thursday, Friday. And most people are already taking that because they're utilizing this is a great time to go to Italy or this is a
Right.
great time to go to France because no one's traveling and we have this day
Hmm.
off, so we might have used it. And so that's what we did. So, another great thing about living here and the ease of travel is that because you can get airfares cheap and you have these random school year school day in these days off in the school year, and you look at flights that way, you go on Skyscanner like we have this weird day off in February, let's just because I didn't think Skyscanner you can just put dates in and like broaden the search, just show
Hmm.
me the cheapest flights, and they're like you can go to Bucharest. Well, why
Well, why
not,
not
right?
then?
And but you can go for like 2 3 days because it's so cheap, and you don't have this feeling like if you were coming from America or if you're Europe going to Asia, like you have to get all of it in because it's such an
And you
ordeal
need
to
to
trip on.
stay somewhere for like 2 weeks or something because you're
Yeah,
traveling
and
so
see
far.
it all because
Right.
we're never gonna get here again.
Hmm.
Like when we were at Paris for the Olympics, I'm like, oh, we're not gonna see all this stuff, but we're nonplussed because we're like, I mean, it's just an hour away. I mean, it's not like
Right.
we can't come back here,
Right, and well, and
right?
the other thing is you do reverse travel. So the other thing is like we went to Denmark in July, so everyone's coming to Spain,
Right,
right? So we went the other way because we were like,
right,
it's as hot as hell here. We're feeling it. So let's go to Denmark, and it was kind of cloudy and rainy, and we loved it in the middle of
right,
July. But who wants to go there in July? Well, us. So you can also
right,
like get tickets to go to places that people aren't generally going to at that time of year because your whole scenario is different.
right.
So that's
I mean,
nice.
speaking of reverse travel, this summer we're going to do a train trip through Spain. So we're going to go to Granada and see the Alhambra and go to Sevilla.
Oh, trains,
And
because really,
yeah,
I
no, but I was going to
calculated.
say that the reverse. Let me
Oh,
just say this: the reverse travel though is we're going to inland Spain in the summer, so we're getting hotels for really like a
because it's
hotel
going to
for
be
a
really
family of
hot.
three. Exactly, everyone's at the
Yeah.
beach. So the beach, the hotel rooms are 500 a night, but in Granada, we're staying at a place with a pool for 100 a
I
night
hope it
for a
also has
family
air
of three.
conditioning because you're going to need it.
Air conditioning, pool, and breakfast included. I'm like 100. Like we're going. This is
Oh my gosh. Well,
insane.
speaking,
And everyone's like, your face is gonna
your
burn
face is
off
going
while
to
you're
burn off
there.
there. Well, speaking of trains, I calculated because I was sort of looking at like, can we be creative in going to England and maybe take trains or drive or whatever? It is, I mean, when you compare the cost of air travel now, the cost of
Right.
taking trains around Europe or driving long distances, I mean, but specifically the trains where you think, we'll just hop on a train and go to London. No,
Well, I mean, isn't that
no.
that's the American myth where they think that that is the trains and airport you can just take trains everywhere. Well, if you live in Spain, you're not taking the train to southern Italy because it would take you 7 days
Well,
to
also
get
the
there.
cost of them, they're not cheap. Like I
No,
calculated,
they're
I
not.
think
And
if
once
I
you
wanted to
pass,
take a train, I would have to go from Valencia to Barcelona. Then I think I could make it to Paris from Barcelona. And then
yeah,
I've
you
got to
got to.
take that Euro train over to England, which is like 350 a person. I mean, by the time
Yeah,
I was done with like a family of three, we might as well have taken like I don't know
bought a
the
vacation
Concorde or
condo.
something if it still existed. I mean, something really expensive. I mean, it was going to be very, very, very expensive. So
And that is the thing, like once you cross the borders, the train travel gets more expensive. Now, like if you're in like Central Western Europe, like in Germany and France and Switzerland, those trains, I don't know the cost, but yes, you can go to those countries very quickly.
yeah,
But if Spain is far removed from the rest of Europe, right? It's a peninsula. It's its own place.
yeah,
Just kind of
and it's
like
big.
Italy is
It's
it
much
and it's
bigger than
big.
you think. So when you think about taking a train from like southern Spain, for instance, over into France, that's a very long trip
It's
to
9 hours
start with.
from here to get to
Right.
Paris by train if you're lucky to get the connection being small in Barcelona,
And it's
right?
not a
And
direct
it's
train. That's the other thing. Like you're
right.
not taking direct trains. Whereas, like you said, if you're in the middle of sort of easterny Europe-y area, then you can probably take a train over a border into another city, into another capital city, and really see a lot of places there.
Right.
Yeah, but it
Right.
was not worth it because I was like, that would be fun to just take the train and I was like, well, you got to change like 3 times and then the price just isn't worth it. You might as well, because they do have some scenic trains and things that you can take for trips
Right.
that are kind of like cruises but trains through different places, and you're better off like spending the money doing something like that because
Right.
that is a thing that you get on and then you get off at the end, like, you know, and you're better situation, I think, because you're actually paying for something
When
special.
we did the Olympics, I wanted to take like to fly there and take the train back. Cause I'm like, well, it's 9 hours. It's a long time. But I'm like, it's only 9 hours, and we could see all the green and the farms of and vineyards and fields of lavender through through France, right, and then to the coast of Spain. But then it was because we're crossing the border. It was going to come out to like 200 per person to take this train. I'm like, but the flight was like going to be 100, per person each week. So it was the Olympics. So it was an expensive flight comparatively, right?
Right.
And I was like, well, we're not going to do that,
Plus the cost.
But
Plus you got to eat and do things that if you're getting on a short flight, you just kind of do that and then eat wherever
right,
you get there. So if you're gonna take a flight to Paris or something, you're not going to eat in the Valencia airport. You're going to wait until you get to Paris and get some really
right,
delicious French food when you get there. So you're starting your holiday that way, I think.
right.
So a totally different experience. But yeah, so the train hasn't been.
But train travel in Spain itself is very inexpensive. And then we have competing trains. Like in America, you just have Amtrak, and that's the only train you can take, right? And here we've got the Irio and the Ouigo. We got an Italian company, a French company. We have like discount train lines, so like you can get to Madrid like €9 each way if you plan ahead and you look at the right times and stuff. It's insane how cheap that can
No,
be.
absolutely. And that's a fast train too. So there's a fast train
Right.
between Madrid and Valencia. So that is commutable actually. Like if
We've
people,
gone there for lunch and to
yeah.
the museum and came back the same day and not exhausted. Like we came back and like, all right, let's go out to dinner
Yeah.
once we got back into Valencia.
No, it's very, very, very doable. And I think that's kind of, yeah. So within each country, I think you can really use the trains. And well, I would say in England the trains are very expensive compared to other forms of transportation, but so
Right.
it probably depends on the country. But yeah, in Spain it's very doable depending on where you're going, I would
Right.
say. But yeah, I think the travel overall is very exciting here with the different
Right.
things. And the other benefit is let's not forget, you're in a place that people want to visit. So if you have other friends, maybe they might come from America, but even if you have other friends in Europe, they can come see you as well. So,
Right.
you're in a spot where people are happy to come visit. So you have a lot of, I lived in LA and I lived in DC. People weren't really visiting me in those places. LA was way
Right.
too far away for anyone to visit me. And DC, I mean, it is a place that people would go. But I mean, when you're living in Spain, people are like, when can I come visit?
Right. Oh, I mean, our first year we were inundated in a good way. I don't mean that. Don't. If any of my friends are listening, we'd love to have you. But we had a lot of visitors, and now our second year, like the visitation has like dropped
It
off, which
drops
is
off.
common for everyone I've heard. Is that the first year everyone's coming, and then the second year, like where all my friends go? But what we've done too is like when we went to the Paris Olympics, we were just going as a family, and then my dear friend and her husband said, you know what? They live in England. They're like, we just looked up and we found some Olympic tickets, and we're gonna go, and we found a room, and we'll just meet you there. And like that was the great thing. And I've told my friends, well, if you're gonna go to a country, just give me a couple months notice,
Right.
and if it aligns with us, maybe we make a trip out of it and we meet you for lunch. Like not to not to glom onto your trip, but to be like, hey, this could be a perfect opportunity us to go see a city we weren't planning on seeing and see a friend for lunch or dinner while we're there.
Absolutely. And then we had friends that were living in Italy American friends that were living in Italy that just came and visited us from there because it was easier for them to pop over while they were still in Italy than to go back to
Right.
America and then visit us. So they just came over for like a long weekend, and that was a blast. So it's like having your friends that might be either taking a trip, like you said, around Europe, and then maybe they use you as a stop or whatever, or like you go with them and meet them somewhere for one part of their
Right.
trip. So that's also like a very doable thing as well. And you might get to visit another country when one of your friends is visiting, I don't know, another part of Europe.
Right.
So
Right. Which is, I mean, it's exciting. So now I'm looking at like, I look at the school breaks and then look at Skyscanner and I'm like, what random like, so I really want to go see places like Bucharest. Like I want to go to these like random cities I never thought about that like, you
yeah.
know, that aren't like the grand tour of Europe cities. Cause now we're here and if we can go and find this like little like unfound gem and stay in a really nice hotel for really cheap and have this kind of experience that we
Yeah.
would never even have
Oh
thought
my God, I
about,
went
right?
to Romania in the early 90s and I would love to go back and see. I must have changed just so dramatically, and I've heard great things about there other than my experiences there, which were great. But yeah, that would definitely be a spot. So
Yeah.
you have all these little dreams of places and you just keep
Yeah.
them. And then when you go onto Skyscanner, you're like, let me try this one. But also, some of these airlines will put out, like, we have cheap flights right now to these cities. And you
Right.
can see, I mean, you can see if that works for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, if ever I come to the moment where I'm like feeling like oh we have this like I mean it would be great like right now if like I'm planning for the future, you know. But like if I had extra cash in my hand
Right.
now to be like, wait, the girls are off for 2 weeks for spring break. Maybe I should put in and see who's got a cheap flight tomorrow. I mean, that would be great. One I would love to be able to do that with the kids to
So
be like,
that used
oh,
to
by the
be the
way, pack your
way.
set. We're leaving
Yeah,
tomorrow,
but remember,
and
do
they'd be
you
like,
remember
what?
that used to be how it was done? Like they would give away flights for the next day or the same day because they were empty. But
Right. I
that
do
hasn't
remember that
existed for a very long
for a long
time.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe yeah, that would be nice if that was the
But you know,
case.
I've noticed in the few times we've traveled here that I mean, it was funny when we went to England, the airport was empty and so was the flight. Like we were like, there's not a lot of people on the flights. Like I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. We haven't traveled a lot. Like I've said, we've been to Paris, we've been to England, but I feel like they're not overselling flights in the States. I don't know. Am I wrong? I
I
don't. I mean,
rarely, I mean, again, we've flown, we've been to a few places, but I've rarely had a spare seat next to me. Very quite
okay,
rarely. I think they're pretty much booked most of the flights. But I'm also flying to London and Morocco and Denmark, and maybe well Denmark was in the middle of the summer. I don't know. I think maybe some cities might be different where they don't have as many people, but
right,
I think they got pretty good now. Like I think people are traveling a lot, and they've got pretty good at like how many people are traveling at certain times to around different cities, and they kind of know. So it's quite
right,
unusual these days for these little hopper planes to get a flight where there's empty seats on it. They're pretty booked
right.
up.
But you know, and then the thing about like the Ryanair, some you have to check the times because
Oh God.
Ryanair's like $4 flights are like at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Like the airport's not even open. Like you have to let yourself in through the back gate and you know the
Although,
combination to get on
or
your plane.
it's absolutely packed because Ryanair has like four flights going at that time. So you get there and it's packed and it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you're
But
like,
none of the
what?
services are open. You're like, but I can't get a croissant.
No, no, you can't get anything, but you can just get on your flight with the 5,000 other people that are there at 4 o'clock in the morning, really grumpy.
Really grumpy.
And the kids are like
Yeah.
sleeping on the suitcases. I mean, that's not, you
I
do
mean,
have to
we've
watch
looked at
it.
that too because we had looked at taking a different trip this summer, and the flight back was like 5 o'clock. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, that means we have to leave the hotel at like 2 o'clock in the morning to get to the airport. I'm like, I paid for a hotel room that I'm not using really. So now this flight's actually more expensive. So,
Well, that's true because I took one of those flights once and we got into London at like midnight. Now,
mhm,
where we were, we could get into London probably, but where I need to go in England, I couldn't get to at that time. So I basically then, like you said, I had to pay for a hotel next to the airport because I'm like, I'm not gonna take a taxi or something to a hotel far away. So I'm getting a hotel right next to the airport just so that we can then wake up in the morning and take the train or whatever to get out to go where we need to go. So yeah, you have to also look at like, can you get to the airport at that hour? Can you get to where you need to go when you get to the other end at that hour? Because if it's only a 2-hour flight, which it probably is at most, you're getting there at a ridiculous hour as well.
Right.
It's like there's a lot of sort of things where you're like, I don't know if that actually makes sense financially at this point.
Right. Exactly.
But it is kind of it is, and that's how they do the cheap flights, is by having flights at times when nobody else wants them, and then they have the odd one at a time that people do want, and then that one will be more expensive.
Right.
But hey, it works. I mean, depends on where you're going.
I mean, it's an adventure.
It is an adventure.
It is a definite adventure. Living here and having all that at your fingertips.
Yeah, I mean, what a luxury,
and wanting it.
Right? Because I mean, I have when I lived in the States, I mean, I didn't travel as much as I wanted to. I did travel quite a bit, but doing road trips in America was always really fun because of all the different places you would go in between the cities and things that were hard to get to. And so that's kind of an adventure that was fun when I was younger there. And we've driven a little bit around Spain as well, which is really nice. But it is quite a luxury to have all these different cultures so close, and the different types of food, and it's wonderful. We have to take advantage of it more for sure.
Right, and it's great because when you're just flying within the Schengen area, there's no passport control. It's just like easy breezy. It's very stress-free.
It is very stress-free. And then you're so spoiled you don't do it. This is the problem.
Well, then my kids have school, right? Then it's like, I mean, they have these random holidays, but I'll touch like, but is this random holiday like right before like finals are
right? And you're so exhausted that you want 2 days of not driving around or not picking up your kids from school or whatever. So we're just going to stay home and not do anything. So we have all the same issues. You have all the same issues here as you have wherever you're living right now.
Right. But we're trying to take one trip during the school year on this one of these random holidays when no one's traveling, to like just kind of get some cities out of the way or see friends, like especially England was really important for us because it we have very good friends there, but it kind of gives my children that kind of American light experience. Like everything's in English. We go see a West End show,
It is refreshing. Yeah, I will say, like, I think until you speak Spanish completely fluently, it's quite nice for your brain to go somewhere where the language is something you don't have to think about.
Especially when you want to see a show. Like, I don't know what it would like to be like see the Book of Mormon in Spanish in Madrid. Like, I don't know how I could even enjoy that, right? Like, because I mean, that's a level of Spanish I hope to get to one day, but that seems like a lot.
That does seem like that would be a lot. Unless you're seeing it for like the third time or something, and then it's like going to, well, to me that would be like going to an opera or something, which I've never really understood, because it's the same thing. It's all in like Italian or whatever, Latin. I don't know. I can't understand it.
Or German.
Clearly not my thing. For the same reason. Yeah.
Right. So Faith, I hope we've answered, or given you some insight to your comment. Right.
Right. And also, if anyone else has any questions or things they would like to know about Spain or Europe, I guess, as an extension, we are here.
Or just what it's like to live here, raise kids here, like any, like questions, like, what made us do it, like what was, the impetus, or how we even began the research. I mean, anything. Like, we're just giving you the comments right now.
Give them all the ideas. The whole point is that they give us ideas.
Yeah, okay, strike that, reverse it.
That's how it works. All right, well, I think we've sort of reached the end of this one, so it was great chatting with you, and until the next time. Bye. Hey, can't get enough of us? Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Our Spain Podcast.
And on our website, ourspain.com, which we will be updating with exciting new things as we grow.
We would love for you to message us with any topics you would like to hear about.
See you next time.
Bye.